All right, that's good enough. Welcome back, everybody. Hope you're doing well. Just checking the stream here. Today is June 5th, 2025. Big issue today. The big issue today. I just got a couple issues today. The biggest one is the Big Beautiful Bill. The big, ugly abomination of a bill. I am Team Musk here, as you can probably tell. This is ridiculous. It's getting ridiculous. I mean, we're far beyond ridiculousness at this point. Trump was ostensibly elected with the Doge situation in mind. The concept being that we were going to reduce the size of government a little bit. Now we know it was all a fugazi. Trump has been a Democrat since the beginning, of course. And he wants to spend an additional $5 trillion on top of the taxes, right? The additional $5 trillion that's just inflationary theft from people who have fixed incomes and everybody else, really. Actually, anybody who holds dollars. It's amazing they ever got that thing passed. It's amazing that they took control of the money supply. And it's amazing that they still have it. And all we can do is hope that the internet and the information that's circulating now at a much faster clip will eventually undermine those people's authority to control all of our money. Until then, we're just like at their mercy. This omnibus bill thing was predicted by Clarence Thomas a couple decades ago when he was reviewing a case. And he's like, look, what this is going to lead to is omnibus bills that cover everything. What's happened is the federal government, you may recall, was created for a very limited purpose, using powers delegated from the states and the people. The concept was to regulate interstate commerce for necessary and proper reasons. And that's it. That was it. And that's all they did for like the first few decades. And then what happened was, and I've traced this through all of the legal cases in the Supreme Court. Little by little, usually in times of war, the federal government chipped away at the rights of the people and the states. Little by little, it expanded its power. And you can go back and look at these cases. And I have a 50-page memo or thereabouts, legal memo, that identifies all of the bad decisions. And you can clearly see why they're bad decisions. The bad decisions are based on nothing. It's like they look at the old case and they're like, we think we can see this. No, it's not there. It's not there. And then they changed the law and expanded federal power. And Clarence Thomas was like, look, this is going to lead to omnibus bills on everything. And look, the reason for the omnibus bill is clear. It's to obfuscate the purpose, right? It's to disguise. It's to hide the spending. That's what the omnibus bill is for. Otherwise, we do single subject bills. And that's clearly what we should have. And we probably need a constitutional amendment to get that through. That's really the only way to really fix it. We're in such a quandary right now because there's no way when you have a system that authorizes people to spend money on other people's behalf, other people's money, for the general good, or whatever good you can conceive of. Why wouldn't they spend every dime? Why wouldn't they spend every single dime that they can get? I mean, it's their charge, according to them, to take the money to help the people, to spend it better than the people. And that's not what the country was founded on. You may recall, I think it's Benjamin Franklin quote that says, I can find no article, nothing in the Constitution that allows the federal government to spend money for the general welfare. You can quote the preamble if you want, but that's not part of the Constitution. There is no general welfare clause. And we've got to get back to limiting the federal government to spend on everything, because the problem is, as we recognized centuries ago, when you have a government that's thousands of miles away, run by people who you never see and can't have any audience with, they're going to do shit that you're not going to like. And that's why we tried to have the federalist system. We tried to make sure the states were in control of all the local stuff. But little by little, the feds have assumed power over everything. There's nothing that they can't legislate against right now. The constitutional requirement for legislation right now is any rational relationship to the declared purpose of the bill. That's all SCOTUS has to find, is a rational relationship between Congress's declared purpose and what the bill does. And occasionally they do throw out some bills, but it's rare these days. And all we can hope for is, I mean, SCOTUS could reset the whole thing if they wanted to. But you couldn't do it all at once. You'd have to go case by case. The trickle-down effects would be very disruptive, but it would still be beneficial. It would be the way to go. That's what we should do. Because we're not going to elect anybody, obviously, that's going to cut the spending. That's just not going to happen. And so if it's not going to be the elected officials and it's not going to be SCOTUS, there's only another couple ways things could go. One, we can hope for just gridlock, right? We can hope that Trump doesn't pass anything. Everybody just says, no, I'm not voting for that. But they always seem to dangle the carrot in front of the right person because, I mean, that's all you have to do, right? That's all you have to do is go to the holdouts and bribe them. And hopefully we got people like Thomas Massey who are not going to go for that. But it doesn't look good. It does not look good. We need single subject bills, a constitutional amendment. Until then, the best that we can do is start voting for ballot initiatives, single subject ballot initiatives at the state constitutional level, which will begin to intrude upon federal power, begin to claw back some of the federal power, at least the regulatory federal power. The state constitutions should trump that in almost every case. And if you make the right arguments, we should be able to claw back some of the rights through state ballot initiatives. Because at this point, legislation is just lost. It's just so gone. It's crazy. And the spending is just so out of control. I mean, it doubles. We're on an exponential growth curve. Every presidential 8 years, the debt seems to double. And you can go back all the way back to like Reagan or further. It keeps going. I think Truman was the last person who actually had a balanced budget. No. Clinton's doesn't count because it didn't chip into the debt at all. It was deficit related. It did nothing for us. So the spending's out of control. Now, there's some good news about that, some bad news. I mean, the only good news is the United States still has the reserve currency. We still control 60% of the world's currency. But that's fading. It used to be 80%, and it's getting lower all the time. Florida just did this weird thing, which I don't see how it's going to stand, where they are allowing people to do transactions in gold and silver. And this has been legislated. I mean, this has been determined by the Supreme Court before. There were some very clear-cut cases on this. And maybe this will, this is the kind of thing we need to do. You chip into it. You try to undermine their ability to control the money, the other things. But, man, what a fail. And the Republicans are going to lose their asses at the freaking midterms because, damn, it's going to be hideous. A blowout. And then eventually, it's hard to imagine how many more presidential cycles. You do a little bit of the math, and maybe 16 years when we're at $160 trillion in debt or something. Maybe you could see them doing the haircut at that point. At some point, there's got to be the haircut or the devaluation of the dollar. They'll do that before they capitulate entirely, and I would say within 10 years, most likely, unless the productivity goes off the charts, which is possible with some of the new technology we have. Amazing technology. The productive people are getting very productive. All right. That's about all I'm going to say about the Big Beautiful Bill. God damn, I mean, I'm just glad Elon came out against it all. At least there's still some powerful people out there who have the people's back. And that's the way I'm looking at it. All right, I got to tell you about this other thing that really pisses me off. This is Today in Criminal Justice. Today in Criminal Justice. At some point I'll have a nice little display. But there is on your iPhone, and I don't know if this is on other phones, but there is a button or a series of buttons or a way to press the buttons, and I'll tell you what they are in a second, that could get you killed. And here's what it is. If you, on my iPhone anyway, and I've got the old iPhone 11, if you hold it in your hand, right? If you just squeeze your iPhone, just take your iPhone and just hold it in your hand. What happens is you hold down a couple of the buttons at the same time, and it calls the police. That's right. Your phone just automatically will just call the police. And I found this out totally haphazardly. I was just pissed off. I grabbed my phone and squeezed it for a second, and the fucking thing called the cops. Now, this is deadly. This is potentially deadly. I know there's a lot of y'all out there who are like, oh, the cops are good. What's the problem? When are you going to call the cops? No, the cops theoretically can kill you, okay? And they have guns. They have the ability to kill you. And when they respond to a call, they're on alert to kill somebody, theoretically, if necessary. You may be that person. I can't tell you how many people that I have defended through my legal career who were the people who actually called the cops. It's north of 20%. It's like 30% of the people that I defended, having been arrested or gotten their asses kicked by the cops, all the shit, they were the ones who called the cops. You may have seen a story. There was a story recently about a guy who called the cops, sitting in, he wrecked, called the cops, and they shot him. There's another story right now floating around, literally, the internet, about some guys who were out fishing, and they found what they thought were illegal long-haul fishing lines with a bunch of sharks caught. They knew the law. They knew that this kind of stuff was illegal. And so they started to set the sharks free. They cut the lines, and during it, they recorded the entire situation and live streamed it to make sure that the authorities found out what was going on, because these guys were going to do the right thing. They were good Samaritans, and they were going to save these sharks. Unfortunately for them, they were cutting the lines of one of 5 very specific vessels, which are in fact licensed to do the illegal things that that they were doing, which is catching the sharks. And now they were doing it for research purposes. You can imagine, so they're not doing it for fishing or anything like that. It's for research purposes, probably to keep control of the population. But it was legal, and these guys broke the law, damaged property that was somebody's, and they got caught because, of course, they recorded the whole thing and streamed it all live. Now, what do you think happened? Do you think that the federal officials who got involved looked at the situation and used some judgment and said, you know what? These guys broke the law and they damaged this property, so they're going to have to pay for this property. But they clearly didn't think they were committing any crimes. They clearly thought they were preventing crimes, right? Preventing crimes. There was no criminal intent at all. And so we shouldn't charge them with federal crimes. You might think that that's what happened. No, that's not what happened. No. The federal authorities arrested the guys, and they said, well, we're not concerned with intent at all. There's no intent requirement in the law these days for doing bad things. Something happened. It doesn't matter if it was an accident or you thought you were doing literally the best law enforcement thing you could do. No. They arrested the guys, and they sentenced them to prison time, I'm pretty sure. They convicted them in federal court. And they most likely sentenced to prison time, because if you get convicted in federal court, that's where you're going, most likely. And Trump just pardoned the guys. And I know it's a silly thing. It's like, well, why is the president involved in that kind of shit? But when you think about what the situation is, what's happening is literally law enforcement all over the country, and especially federal law enforcement, don't give a flying fuck about your criminal intent. And apparently the judge didn't either. So nobody used any judgment about what was happening, about how the people decided to do the thing that they did, which by every account was they were doing it because they thought it was the right and legal thing to do, and they were preventing crime. That's what they thought. But no, that's not how criminal justice gets enforced these days. They've done away with the intent requirement. And that really sucks, because that means that your ass can be driving down the road and accidentally squeeze your phone and have the cops called. And then you know what you do? Let's say you realize right away, I didn't need to call the cops. I didn't mean to call the cops. So you just hang up, right? Guess what that does? That initiates them to come out and check on you, because they're thinking you're getting attacked right then, and they're going to save somebody. So you can't just hang up. You have to communicate with them. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to call. Sorry. And then you have to hang up, and you fucking hope, pray to God they don't send anybody out to fucking help you, because Jesus, you don't want to call the cops these days. I tell people all the time, you find a fucking body, you find an exit, okay? Don't sit around like, hey, let me call the cops. There's a dead body here. Look, hey, officer, there's a dead body here. There's blood everywhere. No, I didn't see anybody else. You're going to prison, okay? Unfortunately, you can't call the cops these days. It's too fucking dangerous. It's way too dangerous to call the cops these days. So if you're in a carry state, carry so you can protect yourself, and otherwise you just deal. Because the last time I called the cops, I'll tell you, the last time I called the cops, somebody was in our house, picked up my mom's silverware, and ran out the door with it. And I immediately called the cops, and I'm like, hey, this guy just ran out the door with the silverware. I found out, I knew where he lived, so I called the cops. I'm like, this is where he is. They were like, we'll get to it, maybe like Monday, maybe. And I never heard from him again. That's law enforcement these days, unfortunately. They're swatting people. Have you seen this? They arrested a guy just the other day. They finally convicted this guy for calling in 75 SWAT calls, right? 75. This guy's a Romanian national. And in the United States, somehow, he was able to call 75 SWAT calls, including on prominent figures. One was apparently on a former president. I don't know how that happened. I don't know what happened there. I haven't heard anything about that. But I saw one guy get swatted twice in one night. Now, what you obviously see from this is there is zero judgment used when evaluating the SWAT call. If this guy could call in 75 times, that means when he had called in 74 times before that, the 75th time was still fucking successful. So that's your law enforcement at work these days. If you work in law enforcement, I feel bad for your ass. Because, first of all, you have to enforce a bunch of bullshit laws. And I know that distorts everything and makes people hate you. But you guys got to start using some fucking judgment. If I were you, I would be insisting on body cams, mandatory body cams at all times. As soon as you clock in, if you're on duty, the body cam is on. Your car cam is on. Cameras fucking everywhere. Your cop car should look like a Google Maps car as far as I'm concerned. Should be freaking cameras going in every direction. And until we get to that point, it's just watch out is all I can say. Just steer clear of the police. If there's one behind you, turn off the road. Don't go to where they are. Don't talk to them on purpose. They're dangerous. They're more dangerous to you than the criminals. Okay? That's the scary part at this point. We've crossed the threshold whereby now the cops are more dangerous than the criminals. So, unfortunately. Don't know what to tell you about that. We got to repeal some laws. That's all state level stuff. So, you know, I actually I do know what to tell you about that. I wrote a whole freaking book about the way we need to reform criminal justice, pass some lower level crimes, move everything down a bit. But for now, don't squeeze your iPhone. All right, that's it. Hope you're doing well. Take it easy. Be safe.